So today I am here with another episode of the 4.0 Impact Series. I'm delighted to be joined by Huade Tan, who is the CTO and co-founder of a company called Planted, based over in Oxford, North Carolina. So look, in terms of, I guess, where we move from here, it probably makes sense for you to give us a better explanation or a better overview of yourself and Planted.
Yeah, happy to, Leighton. Well, we're in Oxford. We're in an old cigarette factory that used to make Santa Fe Spirits cigarettes, and now we've converted it to a pilot production mill that makes structural engineered wood
Mhm.
products for residential housing here in North Carolina. Except we don't use trees, we use grass, and we use carbon negative building materials to sequester atmospheric CO2 with the long-term ambitions to basically reverse the process of climate change that we've been on for the last 100 plus years.
Yeah, yeah. So look, the founding team are. I mean, let's go into this. All the founding team is primarily made up of ex SpaceX engineers.
Yeah,
Um,
there's
very different subject matter. SpaceX to sustainable building. I mean, yeah, give us a bit of an overview as to that journey and how that happened.
Yeah, it seems like a wacky disconnect, but there's a common thread, I promise. When my co-founder Nathan and I worked at SpaceX, and Justin and Dylan are two of our engineering managers who also worked with us on the same engineering team.
Mhm.
At SpaceX, we were all on the environmental control life support systems team for the Crew and Cargo Dragon spacecraft. And what that means is we were essentially HVAC engineers for small capsules that first took mice up to the International Space Station and then people up to the International Space Station. And over the course of 110 hours, basically you're sitting with three of your, I guess, mates, three of your best mates in the worst road trip you could ever imagine, where you can't roll the windows down, you can't pull over to go to the bathroom. You're just in this thing. And the only thing keeping you alive are the machines that we've put in place under your seats to scrub the air that you and your friends are essentially continuing to rebreathe.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's where we got really interested in CO2 management,
Mhm.
amongst other things, oxygen, relative humidity, things like that. And we're right now working on the larger, CO2 problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I mean, as you said at the beginning of this conversation, not maybe a little bit wacky and not the most obvious of links, but when you explain it that way, yeah, you're in your previous role, you was required to consider and tackle the problem around CO2, but from a different angle. Now you're going at it from I guess like a different perspective, but at scale, right? To essentially help mankind, humanity continue to breathe. Is
Well, scale is an interesting one, right? We dealing from a 10 cubic meter bubble to now the planet-sized bubble, right?
yeah,
4 people to 8 billion plus crew members, 110 hours from to an indefinite mission
definite
duration.
time.
These are all big changes in the objective requirements, but at the end of the day,
Definition of scaling up, that is.
definition of scaling up exactly. And in order to do that, you have to really think about what the technologies are that you implement and how you go about it. We used a very simple physical chemical process that sequestered CO2 in a tiny capsule that was not going to ever close, energy wise on a
Mhm.
planetary scale. So we've had to adopt different technologies at
I mean,
Planted.
look, without giving away any of the secret sauce, any company secrets, can we maybe kind of take a bit more of a deeper dive into that? Can you elaborate perhaps in terms of, I mean, you talk about the biomass, the grass material. Can we go into a bit more detail around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the when you think about gigatons or billions of tons of CO2 emitted per year, the real question is, okay, what else do we do that makes, what other materials do we make, sorry, that on that scale?
Hmm.
And when you think about billions of tons, there's not that many things that we as humans actually make that are that heavy, that massive. And so it's cement and steel and to some degree timber. And so those are the main building blocks, main ingredients that goes into infrastructure, buildings, cities, everything that we live in and work around. So ideally, the question is, okay, how do you make a material that can replace them and ultimately be way more efficient and capture carbon? So then you do this work on two fronts. One, you reduce the amount of energy required to make the material in the first place.
Yep.
Steel and concrete are highly emissive products, right? It takes a lot of energy to smelt iron or a lot of energy to crack lime rock into cement. And our chemical processes or physical chemical processes, for as much as we think we're really sophisticated, are not all that developed, and we're using 100-year-old technology plus, right, to make the same materials over and over, and emitting gigatons of carbon in the process. So if you can just change that, right, change what we're doing and what we're using, you can, one, stop the emissions from those sectors, right? And then two, actually replace it with something that ideally locks carbon away. And that in our current current permutation is grass, taking grass and using some resin and turning it into an engineered product that outperforms essentially all these other things.
You make it sound very simple, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than you made it sound. But that was a really useful, I guess, high level overview. So the story so far. So founded in 2021, as we said, by a cohort of ex colleagues who worked on various projects at SpaceX. And what's through that period, what's the last sort of 3 years? What does that look like, and where do you find yourselves today, April 2024?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a roller coaster ride of emotions and fun times, I would say. We started with tiny little things. I'm sitting in my office looking at my first sample that we made in 2021 out of another biomass additive. It was an agricultural waste product that we smashed into a board and things like that. Tried different precursors, resins, things like that, different processes. And we started up very small, on a small scale, the size of this coffee coaster, lab scale.
There we go. Good to see you're upcycling your old products as well. Now it's a coffee.
Well, you have to find something to do with this stuff, like making coffee coasters is one of our tried and true. Actually, we've been in the business of coffee coaster making for the last 3 years.
There's money in coffee coasters, right?
Well, at least you can use it. I don't know if we make any money off of it, but at the end of the day, it's been taking that, getting the recipe down, understanding the physics and the chemistry. It's time, temperature, pressure, and the right ingredients at the end of the day. And so taking that and scaling it up, we've gone through 5 iterations of presses at this point, 4 iterations of stranders. We built our first house with our largest customer last year. And we're now at pilot production scale. What that means is it's the first continuous process, continuous lazy river fruit roll-up machine, easy Play-Doh extruder, however you want to call it. Material goes in one end, panels come out the other. And this machine is sized for essentially enough production, about 5,000 tons of material production, to build a few, let's say, developments, housing developments, or a year, every year.
And that's where you're at now. And I guess from the genesis of the business, or the genesis of the company, should I say, through to now, you've been through various raises. You've been through a successful Series A.
Yes. So the definitions of series are tricky, but we've learned through this. We've been pretty capital efficient. We've raised roughly 13.5 million so far.
Okay. And you said that it's difficult to specify, rounds and raises, etc. But you're working towards a significant what should we say, Series B, or at least a significant round whereby you can really amp up and 10x production over the coming period.
Absolutely. So we've spent, like I said, the first 3 years developing the material process, right? Like actually understanding how to make the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've proven out the production process, scaling up. This year we finish our certifications and launch into the market. We've proved out the business, and now it's growth. Now it's going up and scaling, going into larger facilities, building out more machines, more production. I mean, the interesting thing about this industry is the demand for materials is effectively infinite compared to our size at this point. We're talking, like I said in the first bit, billions of tons of materials, right? Timber by itself is pushing 1 billion tons of annual production.
Yeah.
Steel is 2 billion tons. Concrete or cement is 4 point some odd billion tons.
Wow.
We could scale from here till the infinity of our lifetimes, basically, and only scratch the surface. So.
Yeah. But even scratching the surface, I mean, yeah, it will still have huge impact, environmentally, in terms of carbon sequestration, just by scratching the surface. But look, you've got to aim big, move fast and fix things, I think is your mantra, right?
Well, we've adopted it from another existing one, but definitely, you have to move fast and hopefully understand what you're fixing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the problem that we are working on is so big, right, that it will take many companies to get many things right in order for us to hopefully impact something.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the green tech, climate tech space is, one of the fastest growing sectors, and for good reason. There's so much innovation now that's, and also so much capital, because ultimately capital is what's going to drive this. Capital is what's going to, help people like yourselves and your co-founders take a good idea and then, turn it into a company that's going to then scale. And that's really where the impact is, right, at scale. It's not about, like you say, it's not about a few hundred tons. You're getting into the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands and upwards. And that's where the scale is. So, yeah, look, I guess, I suppose my final question, and I always ask this because, one of the feedback we get from a lot of people who watch this is there's lots of people out there that have got a good idea, that are maybe working for a big company, fairly comfortable, but have got that itch that they kind of need to scratch, but are, I guess, nervous, and there's some trepidation in terms of doing it. But I mean, you guys are proof in the pudding that you can, you can do it. But would you do it again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every day, I get up every day to do it again.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, the comfort thing is one thing, right? I mean, we live in a society, I would say, in general, that's sorted a lot of things out, right? We don't have to wake up worrying about where the next meal comes from.
Yep.
We generally have shelter, right? Most people. Some people don't, which is something we have to work on. We generally have unlimited demand or access to data and resources far more than our parents' generation or grandparents' generation, generations before. And so it's really a matter of, okay, well, what to do? I mean, if personally, like if I was to just think about, oh, how do I maximize comfort in my life?
Yeah.
Quite simple to do that, but it's a little bit more difficult to think about, okay, what's worth doing with your time. And so,
absolutely,
that's why we're here.
And then the reason we call it the Impact Pod is we talk about purpose. And yeah, when you're doing something purposeful and you feel as though you're having a bigger impact than just your, directly affecting yourself and your like immediate family and whatnot, it's more about legacy, and it's more about imprint, and it's more about impact on, a bigger topic or the wider world. And yeah, I guess aiming to work on an industry that's responsible for so many gigatons of CO2 emissions. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. So, yeah.
Hopefully we get to Mars one day too, trying to keep the earth in balance until then. But there's a ton of things, and everyone has purpose or finds purpose in doing this. I think we've just found ours in this way.
Absolutely. Well, look, ironically, you never know. If we get to Mars, maybe there'll be a planted product used on
CO2 on Mars, man. That is a
Here you go.
source.
Look, it's got to happen. You got the right contacts, and you got a foot in both camps, so it's got to happen.
Exactly. I mean, we'll be there to make the refineries and the grass plantations on Mars for sure.
There we go. There we go. You heard it here first. Well, look, Huade, we'll end it here. Thanks very much for giving such an honest and comprehensive overview of kind of life so far at Planted. It's a really interesting business case because you know it's very, very clear the problem which you guys are helping to fix. But there's not many businesses or any businesses that are really doing it in the way in which you guys are doing it. So it's almost like creating your own lane, you know, your own category. And it's and I'm sure that comes with its challenges, but you know, at the end is huge reward as well. And I think it's a really, really interesting, really interesting sector with the potential for huge impact. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Cool. Thanks, Leighton. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. Well, we look forward to look forward to what the future brings for you and the team at Planted.
Awesome.
Thank you.